Hi, welcome to Inside Late Night with Mark Malkoff, presented by LateNighter.com. Today, Arthur Meyer, former Jimmy Fallon writer. We talk a lot about Saturday Night Live. John Schneider from the Saturday Night Network joins us. Now it's time to go Inside Late Night. Arthur Meyer, good to see you again.
You too, Mark. Is this my third time on here? Do you know?
Let's just say it's your fourth.
Fourth. It might be my fourth.
There's people, when I would interview people for my Johnny Carson podcast, that would make stuff up all the time that they were on Carson. Somebody was saying like over 50 or 60 times, and they were on maybe like 20 times. So I say go for it and inflate the stats. People don't question it normally. So yeah.
Well, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's so good to see you. Your superpower, I really, really wish I had, which is that you can do all the Saturday Night Live host and musical guest by date, correct?
Yes, I should. I'm a little blurry on like the early 80s, like the Ebersol years. And then I sort of stopped committing the dates to memory after I graduated college because that just felt like I gotta, I'm an adult now. I can't be doing this anymore.
It's unbelievable that you can do that. I think I mentioned like a Justine Bateman, but before. But can you also Can you do the sketches in order from cold open to good nights? Can you do that as well?
That I cannot do. I think I could do it for some episodes, but I don't. I probably most episodes there would be a sketch or two that I'm forgetting, but I bet that there's a decent amount that I could do them for.
I'm gonna just pick one from because I talked about this in an upcoming episode. But John Travolta Seal, can you do that?
Oh wow! Well, you know what's funny? I mean, like I definitely
All of
know.
95.
Yeah, I know a lot of the sketches from that episode, but here's the thing. I started watching SNL the summer after that season, after the 94-95 season. So I only watched reruns, so I don't know. I mainly just know the order of those. Like I almost want to say that the first sketch after the monologue was the Welcome Back Cotter thing. But I don't know if that originally aired later in the show.
I remember. John would know this because he knows he has everything in front of him. But
was it the Bat? Was it Dracula?
I'm pretty sure it was Dracula. At least that's what I remember. And then maybe Coffee Talk. But I didn't think Welcome Back, the Tarantino thing, got up until maybe either right before Update or after Update. I could be off on that. I was there for it, so I should know these.
Feels
things.
Like a first half of the show sketch. Like, do you know what I'm talking about? Like,
yeah.
I also think that there's a certain type of sketch that feels like a first sketch after Update kind of sketch. You know, like an example that comes to mind for me is the Connie Stinson show from the Christopher Walken episode, which, by the way, one of my all-time favorite sketches that I never hear anyone talk about.
Can you describe it for people that don't know it?
Yeah.
And can you tell us who wrote it if you do know? John Schneider's always.
Oh my God, I would kill to know who wrote this one. I have my guesses, but the premise of the sketch is that Christopher Walken plays a talk show host, and this was during the daytime talk show craze of like Ricky Lake and Maury Povich, Richard Bay, Jerry Springer. There were so many of those shows. So Christopher Walken played Connie Stinson. And they're just kind of doing a typical episode of these, it's like about, men who are dating women who have gained weight, but they've gained too much weight. And basically, I guess the joke of the sketch is that Christopher Walken as Connie Stinson is kind of the language that he uses is that he will call them like a fat hog. Like it's like
he's just mean, but he doesn't really realize he's.
Yes, and the guests on the show are all taken aback by how mean he is. Like, it's funny because describing the sketch and make it like I don't want to make it sound. I don't think it's actually making fun of fat people, but it's almost a joke that I don't even. It's almost hard to say what is funny about it, but it's such an odd little idea. I don't know. I'm curious if there are any listeners out there. Oh, does John have the info on that one?
Yeah, so I don't have the writing credit for that one, but it is a post-update sketch, and so is the Welcome Back Cotter one. So they're both.
Yeah, and that Walken one, and John, stay with us. John, that Walken episode, which was January, I believe, of '96. Am I right on that one?
Yeah, January 13th.
That's
with musical guest Joan Osborne.
And they only gave her one song, which that was one of the. She was public about it in an interview how upset she was, and I think Dave Keckner, when he was on my episode on here, was talking about how she gave him a bad, allegedly a dirty look or something like that because he went over or something like that. But I have to say that, and then the one that was Alec Baldwin and I think Tori Amos, which was either before or after. I was like, did they have found their groove that season? Oh my goodness! Both I thought like with both of those, it was like I felt really really good about where the show was headed.
Well, that walk-in episode, by the way, is the only one in SNL history to not show a goodnights on any of the affiliates.
Oh wow.
I didn't know
I
that.
did
That's
not know that.
amazing to think about. They did the Continental. I know that it was Fred Wolf. I was convinced that talk show was Fred Wolf, but I don't think it was.
Talk show, but my guess would be Fred Wolf for
That
that
was
one.
my
But
guess. I gotta get him back, but I just remember that being super strong. But
well, here's a question for you. That walk-in episode, I would put my money on that. Of all the episodes in SNL history, in terms of host screen time, that one has to be up there. I would guess, just because I remember, like he did Continental, he hosted Spade in America, like he was just all over that episode. Do you know the stats on that, John? Of all the episodes, which host has had the most screen time?
We don't know the official stat on it, but that was one of the ones we talked about in contention with, I think, Eric Idle from season 2. There's one episode where he's all over it. Betty White from season 35.
What about Gabriel Byrne? Gabriel Byrne, maybe not the cold open, but he seemed to be in everything.
Yeah. Jason Sudeikis currently holds the modern record, 34 minutes of screen time in season 4.
Oh, wow.
I would have thought of Phil Hartman. That's so interesting that it's Sudeikis.
Oh, right.
I mean, both bit similar utility people that they would put in. That's amazing. John, where are you currently up to in terms of the greatest SNL episodes? What number are you up to your reveal? Because I want to ask.
We revealed
Arthur,
50 to 31, so the first 20 of the.
I can't believe that Jerry Seinfeld is and Annie Lennox from whatever 92 wasn't. That was like number 50 or something or 60. I'm like that's easily a top 20 in terms of the writing, in terms of that. I was really really disappointed with that. I do have faith in some of my other favorites that they're going to be mentioned, and I do think that even though I think it's overrated, I know that they're going to put the top Jim Carrey and the Soundgarden probably in the top 10. To me, it was a good episode. I get it, but I knew it was the writing, the actors, the groundlings especially were going to take over the show, and the writing quality was not going to be emphasized as much. And I was right on that. But it is a fun show. But I have a feeling, Arthur, do you have a top 5 or so of your favorite?
Top 5 favorite. I mean,
or strongest that you would think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I once went on my friend Craig Rowan's podcast, who's another great, he's a really good comedy writer. He's about your favorite episode of any show.
Michael Jordan was your favorite, right?
Michael Jordan was my favorite.
That was in the top 50, by the way.
Yeah,
really strong episode. Yeah, I thought that would have been up higher too, but it's all good.
I'm trying to think what else will be in top 5. I mean, I definitely remember Jim Carrey's being like a true standout episode. I remember, which one I really like, honestly, and I think it did make the top 50 was the Kevin Spacey episode, the first time he hosted.
That did not make our top 50. I could say that.
The hardest thing for me.
Oh, maybe I'm just thinking of. I saw you guys mention it in the season 22 everything to know about SNL. But
thing for me in that episode, and then back to you, Arthur, was Cleese and Palin, geniuses, getting complete silence on the
total
parrot
silence
sketch, and you know that these VIP people have no idea what this sketch is. Norm Macdonald mentioned, I don't want to mention who the cast member is, he told one of the cast members they're doing the parrot sketch. They're like, oh, is it funny? And it's like, Norm's like, you don't know the dead parrot sketch from Python and you're doing sketch comedy. But that was the hardest thing for me for Spacey. But Arthur, back to you.
Well, I mean, now I'm thinking about, because I feel like probably, John, when you guys poll, I'm guessing that it probably skews more modern, right? I mean, I could be wrong about that.
That was my guess.
You would think, however, we've released 20 so far, and 17 seasons have been covered. So it's really like a large swath. There's a few modern episodes, like we got like Gosling and Chris Stapleton was on there. We the Sudeikis episode was also on there. So like those are some modern ones that like crack the list probably from recency, but we have ones from almost every era so far. So it's just like there's a large it's really segmented, but it all came together in a way that I'm really happy with.
I would totally do I could totally pick my like favorite episode of each season. I was just thinking back of like 78, 79. I feel like that Eric Idle episode was a really good one. I don't know if you guys remember that one.
Sure.
That's a great one. That's like I think it's the first Candy Slice sketch. They have the Madrigal, which is a really cool thing. Do you guys remember the Madrigal? It's like Bill Murray, Lorraine, Jane, and Eric Idle singing a madrigal, like, and the ship that took to sea. And it's just a really precise performance. The Eric Idle monologue in that episode was great. I think Julia Child was that episode.
Yeah, it's the Kate Bush one.
Yeah, Kate Bush, also like one of my favorite musical performances. But like 77, 78, you have their famous like April 22nd episode with Steve Martin, which like that one really front to back. I mean, you watch it and you're like, this is not only is it funny back then, but it still holds up.
Is that
like
Blues Brothers as well.
Yeah. It's the first Blues Brothers.
That's top 3 easily. Top 3 easily in my.
And I think like the dancing one with Steve Martin and Gilda's in that episode. Like the best of the the Fest Trunk Brothers installments is in that one as well. Theodoric of York, I think, is in there.
So conventionally, that most people think that's the greatest episode of all time. I'm not going to spoil the list, but certainly it's one that is highly considered.
I still think top 10. Alec Baldwin, Paul McCartney, February of '93.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's way up there for me too. That's a great one.
And I can't believe Smigel and Sandler's French teacher sketch for Baldwin was like way after Update, when it was hard to get laughs, and it still absolutely killed. I thought Tim Meadows, even Soap Opera Digest, which was a Tim Meadows piece later. I mean, I thought the whole thing, the Mimic, which was Franken, I think Mandel, and maybe Christine Zander, and of course the Chris Farley show with McCartney.
Oh yeah,
genius. I mean, I think that was that one was Franken and Ian Maxtone Graham, I believe, that did that one in particular. Maybe Downey, I mean, had his footprint on that as well.
Yeah. Wow, interesting. Yeah, that's a great one too. I'm trying to think what else is coming to mind. I mean, you know what I think is a great one is the season premiere of season 14 with Tom Hanks and Keith Richards is a fantastic, and maybe in terms of like audience response, like might be one of the best audiences of all time. Like that episode has Phil Hartman doing the weightlifting thing. What else is in that?
That was
the
Jack
debate
Handy.
Sketch.
Was that a Jack Handy piece?
Yeah,
right?
I think that's Jack Handy.
Yeah, with his arms coming off, and then the monologue is always fun to see people like Odenkirk or Conan or whoever. And
yeah, that was Conan with the horse and his Keith Richards story about. Have you guys heard that one? Like Keith Richards and Conan backstage, and
Conan that episode is the famous debate sketch also.
The debate sketch. I can't believe I'm losing to this guy.
Absolutely brilliant piece.
Oh, and I think Mr. Short-Term Memory they have a great one in that. I think it's like the restaurant episode of that, and they have a funny Big pre-tape because Tom Hanks was promoting Big.
Is that no, that's a different one. I was going to say that's when he was sliding into home plate, but that was a different episode.
No, I think that's the same thing.
Oh, was that it?
Yeah.
That was so funny. I just remember as a kid watching that, and if you look very closely now, you can see that how they did that, how the kid didn't get hurt, but I mean, it looked like when he's sliding into home, that he just annihilated the kid.
You know what's a weird sort of sleeper hit for me in terms of greatest episodes, and I'm almost positive, John, this one won't make your list, but it's John Goodman, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers from April of '99. It's like one of their darkest episodes ever, I would say. Like they have the Happy Smiley Patrol sketch. Do you remember that one? It's like a kids TV show, but it keeps getting interrupted so that Chris Parnell, who plays the deadpan newscaster, is like describing how each host of the Happy Smiley Patrol was involved in this super intricate, like psychosexual, violent. It's just all this descriptive imagery. It's very dark, and it's a weird episode with a lot of new sketches. Like there's one where Chris Kattan plays this kid who's in a gift wrapping store, and he's like wrapping up gifts but doing a terrible job of it.
That was fun. I remember that. That's a good one. So what else was in that? And then I have I had another episode I thought was really
yeah.
I was just going to say Buscemi the first time he hosted when they did the Dennis McNicholas piece, the Mad Hatter, and they did that job interview thing with Catan. I thought that
that sketch is so funny.
I thought that episode was extremely.
That would be a fun poll to do, is like sketches that bombed that are hilarious, because I feel like that one pretty much died if I remember correctly, but I find it really funny. I feel like they sort of had some job interview sketches back then. Like they did one in the Jeff Goldblum episode in '97 that gets almost no laughs. But I literally own a shirt that my friend made for me because of just a joke in that sketch. Tim Meadows shows up for a job interview wearing a yellow jersey that says Hawaii '88, and Jeff Goldblum it's like that shirt you're wearing, and Tim Meadows goes, "Oh yeah, I got this in Hawaii in 1988. They don't make them anymore, and this one is not for sale." And like no one laughs, but I remember going up to Tim Meadows at the 40th and telling him specifically about that sketch.
There was a sketch, I wasn't there when, I think it might have been was it Heather Locklear and Janet Jackson when Norm did Andy Rooney and it completely bombed, and I wasn't there, but I heard backstage that everyone was laughing at the top of their lungs while the audience was not laughing, like, internally. I mean, Jim Downey, when he got called into the quote, "principal's office" when Allmeyer and all of them were, talking about the show, I think Rick Ludwin used that as an example of something that didn't work, and Downey's like, "What do you mean? I thought it was hilarious." And it's bombed on air, but everybody internally, that was maybe something that just made everyone laugh because it was just like Norm just kept going and going, and just they just didn't play.
Yeah, that one's great. I mean, they also have the bar sketch from that episode is a
the flirt,
classic.
Steve Coren's flirt. Oh
Yeah.
man, it's such a that is actually I'd say top 30 episode maybe in terms of.
I love that episode. It's a great finale too.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
The Good Nights, or the whatever they did with the Phil Hart, that song at the end, the Sound of Music thing that Smigel wrote was absolutely phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'll also say you guys are talking about late '90s episodes. Like, I think it's becoming a little bit of a lost era for fans now because the other ones are talked about so much, either for being really good or really bad. But everything is like pretty average to maybe slightly above average. And I think that just the narrative around the late '90s is just recurring characters and Will Ferrell. So I think that a lot of the episodes get blended together in people's minds.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, so I think that's probably, like I said, I don't want to spoil the results of the poll, but I could say, just to wrap up this portion of the pod for you, Mark, just to tell you guys the 20 we revealed so far, in case there's anything interesting on here that you guys like. But we got Swayze and Mariah Carey from season 16. Michael Jordan, we mentioned, that episode came in at 49. David Allen Greer's from season 21 came in at 48.
That's a great episode. That's a really good. That would be on my list for sure.
Yeah. That was a good one. Then we had Anne Hathaway's episode from 2008, 47. Jerry Seinfeld, Annie Lennox, you mentioned, came in at 46. Conan's episode came in at 45. That's from season 26. We had Justin Timberlake, Double Duty, from season 38. That's his Five Timers episode. Shatner and Lone Justice was at 43. Timberlake and Lady Gaga came in at 42. Then we had Christopher Walken and Foo Fighters at 41. Baldwin's Christmas episode with Pavarotti and Vanessa Williams came in at 40. Sigourney Weaver, the first episode of that new era, came in at 38. Then Gosling and Stapleton. Then Alec Baldwin and the B-52s. That one, his first time hosting. Seth MacFarlane and Frank Ocean was 36. Lindsay Lohan, Usher. That's the Debbie Downer episode. Christopher Walken, Arrested Development. And then Grodin was the only new, original era we revealed so far, with Paul Simon and the Persuasions. Jimmy Fallon, Michael Bublé Christmas episode. And then Jason Sudeikis, Brandi Carlile was the most recent
one. Wow. That's interesting. I wonder if there are certain episodes that are almost, to me, feel like they made the list because, I don't want to say solely because, but just like they had such a classic sketch in it. Like, I think of like Patrick Swayze as an example, because I don't really, there's not a ton that sticks out from the rest of that episode.
They did Hans and Franz. They did a Johnny Carson sketch that upset Carson in real life.
That was the one that upset
with
him.
Arsenio, Chris Rock as Arsenio. They did that white trash bed and breakfast, which I think was a 10-1 on Patrick Swayze. I'm trying to think what else. Hans
it's a pretty good episode, honestly.
30 Square Dancing, Cold Open, which was fun. That was a really fun Cold Open.
Pretty underrated, but that's basically the narrative that we've been talking through for the last few weeks, is like how much does one moment make an episode? And you had like the Debbie Downer bring up the Lindsay Lohan episode, which frankly isn't so great. And then the Gosling Stapleton, that's the Beavis and Butthead moment. So you sort of get that like put in here.
That was, I mean, any of his episodes, I feel like are all worthy of top 100 at least. Like his episodes to me are like what you're looking for when you watch that show, which is like, does it feel live? Not just like, is it funny, but does it really feel like a live show?
I want us each to name a couple sketches that we don't know who wrote them and that they're on your mind, because I know eventually we're going to get somebody internally that's going to help us or to crack the code. But the ones some of them, these are just a few on my mind that I've always wanted to know. Is one, and maybe John, you do know, or Arthur, Sarcastic Clapping Family.
I think I might know this.
Who?
And I don't remember where I heard it, because my assumption would be what I'm guessing everyone's assumption is, which is Jack Handy. But I think I want to say it was Al Franken wrote that.
I was going to guess Tom Davis. I have no idea who wrote it, but it was Franken. I email him. I should reach out.
Email who? Al Franken?
Yeah.
You have his email?
I do. Yeah. I mean, I mean, I just get bashful. I get bashful sometimes.
I'm sure he would love it. He's,
Well, I wanted to ask him about a specific sketch, and he actually got back to me, which was one of my favorite sketches, which is a ridiculous sketch, which was You Mock Me, which is John Malkovich and Nita Bryant, and it's just it's just silly, and that's my favorite kind. And I knew Franken wrote it, but I didn't know if he wrote it with anyone. And he told me he wrote it with Mike Myers. He said it was the very
I think it was Mike Myers' first sketch. Right?
It was his very first sketch, and he told me they wrote it together, and we were just talking about that, and he couldn't have been nicer about it. So that's interesting that Franken. The others were Dolly Parton when she's with the cast and she's talking about she didn't have television, and it's like all her favorite the stories that they're all like obviously the things that are told to her. They're obvious TV shows that she didn't grow up with, that they were passed off as stories. And then so Seinfeld, Elijah the Prophet, with Seinfeld doing kind of like the Elijah Groucho Marx type thing, I thought was, I would guess maybe Franken, but those are just some ones that I'm always
has to be a Jewish writer.
Yeah, I was gonna guess Smigel, but then Smigel probably had at least. I mean, he at least had stand up and win in that episode.
I asked Smigel, and he didn't take credit for it. So, because I gave him a big list because I'm a nerd, and he knows it, and he still likes me and is nice to me. But I gave him a whole list of like, who do you know who wrote all these things? And I think I didn't mention that, but stand up. Yep, when he could, even some episodes he would get multiple ones, but I would have guessed Smigel or maybe Franken. I could be. I'm not really sure.
Wow. Yeah, I think for me, one sketch I've always wanted to know who wrote this, and I wonder if you have this information, John, is the blind date airport sketch from the season 26 Rob Lowe episode. Do you guys know that one? It's a really odd sketch. It's just sort of a slice of life sketch, and there's not even really a premise to it. It's just sort of a weird bad date.
That's actually a Will Ferrell and Molly Shannon sketch. They wrote those.
Oh wow!
Like sitting in the office. Molly talked about that on Fly on the Wall.
I love that. Didn't they write the dog talk or dog? What was that called? Dog show. I think they wrote those together as well. They might have had someone else, but
maybe Scott Wayne.
They would write together. Yeah. I told this story before. Will Ferrell was so shocked. It was like the week after that debuted, and I saw him speak at NYU, and he was just, they couldn't believe, because that was so the time it was like all recurring sketches the first half, and then it got to be the first sketch after the monologue, which was really a departure for something like that they couldn't believe that it got in at the top. But I thought that was fun. But Arthur, are there any other sketches that off the top of your head that you want to know? And then,
I mean, there's. I feel like maybe I know this one, but the Hulk Hogan talk show from season 21, my guess would be that that's Adam McKay.
It's McKay.
I think that,
it's McKay.
It is McKay? Okay, yeah, because I know that there's at least one or two names in that sketch that are like guys that he did improv with in Chicago. So I just assumed it was McKay. There's also a fun fact. There's like a Wayne's World from, I want to say like 1990, maybe the Deborah Winger episode, where they say the name Tim Meadows before, like a year before Tim Meadows was ever on the show.
Oh my goodness, I wonder about that. You know that somebody was like Odenkirk or somebody was around the table or something throwing.
Yeah, they just needed a name. Yeah, when you need a name, you just go with people you know.
It's happened a few times.
That happened with one of the writers who wrote Nut Riffic, Brian Kelly. They threw him in the Real World sketch written by David Mandel. And they mentioned his name is a character name, which I mean, Brian Kelly's pretty generic, but it seemed like a Lampoon thing that they put him in.
You know what else I'd be curious about is the 10-to-1 sketch from the second Jerry Seinfeld episode, where he plays a gangster, or is that, yes, like but they're dressed up as doctors, and basically they're basically like beating the crap out of the guy that they're looking for, played by Jerry Seinfeld, but then they still want to get information out of him, so they keep reviving him and making sure that he stays alive, and then they just keep beating the crap out of him. Like, do you know that sketch? That's a really great sketch. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who wrote that one.
Do you know who wrote that one, John?
Yeah. I don't either, but it's a really good visual, like him like coming back to life, dying, coming back to life, that whole thing.
Oh, it reminded me of Jason Alexander when he was beating up Tim Meadows, and he's like, oh, he's had enough, and then Meadows keeps coming back and lunging at him, and it's
yes.
Yeah, I know Meadows told me he wrote that one, but that's a little bit reminiscent.
Yeah, I remember seeing Anna Gasteyer talk at Northwestern in 2003. My older sister Elaine was a freshman at Northwestern that year, and she was like, Anna Gasteyer is speaking at this thing, and I'm like, oh, can I come? So I went to see her speak, and one thing I remember her saying was she sort of talked about the general differences between the male and female writers on the show at the time, which was just that the women tended towards more character sketches and the men were more concept driven. And then she also talked about the specific subset of young Harvard men on the show who would write things that were always about sharks and bears and robots and stuff.
Yeah, well, I think that all changes when Tina comes around eventually and gets more power at the show. But pre-Tina,
interesting. Yeah, McNicholas would write the concept pieces when when they would really work. Like I don't know how much laughter it got, but that Bill Pullman, when he hosted and they did the one thing, McNicholas wrote that piece about, I don't know, was it there were actually, I don't know if it was a live camel or not, but the needle of getting a camel through, it was like a Bible scripture about how for a rich person to get for a camel to go through the needle of
pass through the eye of a needle or something.
That was him. Yes, that was exactly those type of and then Norm wrote that one. I think somebody told me he wrote that tic-tac-toe thing where it's like he just it's the most ridiculous premise. It's like tic-tac-toe. It's like a game show like Hollywood Squares, but he's like manually like hammering in with a nail the X and the O's.
Oh my god, it's such a funny sketch.
Yeah, I think Norm talked about it on Twitter like a few years back, when he was still around, about that sketch and that he read it.
It was ridiculous, but the thing about that episode that I still can't believe, and I really want to see the dress rehearsal, is that AT&T Danish sketch that was the first after the monologue that just dies. And there aren't jokes. I mean, it's a Groundling sketch where it's just all behavior humor, and I'm sure it killed. It had to kill for dress for them to put that up there, and for whatever reason, Catan talked about it in his book. He said that it was one of the first things that he did that like didn't get anything. But do you recall that sketch?
I remember that sketch, yeah, and I think that is, I mean, it has a total Groundlings feel to it. It's an interesting thing with some of those sketches because you could kind of, I just saw recently someone posted, Will Forte was talking about a sketch that he auditioned with where he plays one of those Bronze Street robot or whatever those guys are that just like stand there. They stand still, but he sings a song called like, basically, I know you'll bleep this out, but I'll say it. I guess I suck for face paint.
It gets to that. It takes a while to it gets there, but it
gets there. Yes, there's a really long build.
That's one of the surprises that you don't see coming. Yes.
Yeah, I think you talked about that with Amy Poehler on her podcast recently.
Yes. So they did that sketch because I used to have access to the SNL server when I was at Fallon, and I was just going through. I would scrub through like old dress rehearsals, and I think they did that. And I want to say like the 6th episode that Will Forte was on, which would have been like Brittany Murphy. So it made it to dress, but it completely bombed. But if you watch the video from when they showed it at the Groundlings, it absolutely destroys. Like it's, such a stark difference. And that's the sort of thing where you're like, it must be a thing of just like, does the audience like know who this person is yet? Like had Chris Kattan been on the show long enough for that AT&T sketch to work? Like who knows? It's hard to say.
Kackner told me I was there for his 3rd episode with David Schwimmer, and he did this Marine sketch, and I was there for dress. nothing. And he said at Second City, we kill,
Yeah,
always
yeah.
killed. And it's just, I think it's just, a lot of it is just acceptance. And when they don't know who these people are, and it happened to Will Ferrell for a while, where people don't know who you are. And it's just, it's much harder to get the audience on your side for something. But, yeah, I thought that was
I
interesting.
always love how granular we get about SNL when I'm on this podcast, because I'm always like, I can only assume that the people who are listening to this are as into it as we are, because it's a very specific, very like sort of an esoteric podcast, you know. But like I'm like, I don't even know what a normal person understands from this conversation, you know. maybe they're getting it all. I truly have no idea. I don't know.
Well, there's such like a base level watching of SNL where you don't even think about the people who wrote the sketches, and it really takes like the double or triple watch to just be like, oh, I see the moves here that are similar to other sketches, and you develop patterns and start to like figure those things out. So I think the people who are the most fascinated by the concept of the show love getting to hear these conversations, because then they just get like a little bit closer to it.
I hear from people all the time that have the same questions we do, and very strong opinions, and people that just know SNL a little bit. But I mean, I love Fly on the Wall. They do a great job, but let's face it, you're not going to learn a lot, and it's fun. It's fun to listen to it. Maybe you learn a little bit, but I mean, I wish something like this would exist back in the day. Arthur, you were mentioning that when you were growing up, and I wish I had this when I was first got into SNL, was Sean Bradley's message boards. I mean, I think you both were on them, right? Was that after? Did you get into the show after Sean Bradley was doing the first SNL site?
I was around when he was doing it, but I wasn't as actively involved had I been a little bit older.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I would write episode reviews for that website. I mean, you know, anyone was allowed to write episode reviews, and just
it was great to I never posted anything but just to see what people had to say, what the fans were, and to get as nerdy as we are with strong opinions and writers. John, what are your mysteries? A couple sketches that you still, because I mean, you have this list. I mean, the most complete list of anybody that's not works at 30 Rock, of who wrote what and stuff. I mean, what are some of your mysteries?
Mine are more modern ones, because I feel like the older sketches will get determined, but there's like some modern ones that like nobody wants to take credit for, that I would love to like figure out. One is so the Omicron episode, which is probably the most unique episode in the history of Saturday Night Live, when Paul Rudd was set to host for the 5th time, and then everyone dropped like flies, and they only had like a few people left, but they decided to like go on air and make this like a canon SNL episode. And I don't know like who ended up putting together that cold open of Paul getting his jacket with Che and Tina and like all that. Like that's one for me that like, because we were working with a skeleton crew, like I have no idea who put that one together. That's a big mystery for me.
I think it would be interesting to hear some sort of list of the most unique or most unusual episodes of SNL. Like, you know, Francis Ford Coppola comes to mind, and George Wendt. That's a big one. What else would be on there? What's coming to mind for you guys?
That would be really strange when they had that grandmother host or whatever, wasn't it? Like anybody can host the show.
Yeah. Well, I interviewed one of the finalists from the Everyone Can Host contest, and got to talk to her about what it was like to be there for the Buck Henry episode when they would come and like the audience would vote. And it was the most fascinating conversation.
Wow. Did you learn anything you that really sticks to mind?
Well, first of all, how good John Belushi was to them, which was like a really
that makes sense. I could see that,
which was really cool. But more like that, it just like at the time, like you're trying to think of the logistics of how this all worked, and like she was a college student, and that they had to like call her, like leave a message with the secretary at the dorm to like let her know to come into the show, and then just like what they did with them all week. Like she basically got to watch the show from the inside, and she remembers like watching. It was a really fascinating conversation, honestly. And then all the things, like all the memorabilia she got to keep. And basically a lot of it would like, they were winging a lot of it, like because they had Buck and they just trusted him to like go up there and talk to it. So it was like maybe the most unscripted SNL segments ever. It was really interesting.
Wow. The 5 Hosts episode comes to mind too, just in terms of like, they've never done that, you know, the one from May 12th, the day before I was born, May 12th, 1984. What else? I guess probably the what's the thing that ends with like the giant lobster?
The lobsters? Yeah, the Robert Klein episode.
Yeah, that's a really good one.
I like whenever they would break format. I mean, the David Mandel stuff was always so much fun. I wouldn't say it's like
which David Mandel stuff are you talking about?
I love at Good Nights when they do Grease, when Travolta hosted and they do the.
Oh, okay, that was Mandel.
Yeah, like the Planet of the Apes called Open, and it bleeds into the opening credits where they're all in monkey. They're all in Planet of the Apes costume.
Oh, yes. That was
like,
great.
Anytime they would depart from the format, like McKay, when they would do like this, it was like, didn't it say De Niro? Next week, De Niro and Rolling Stones, and it's Subpoenaed by Kenneth Starr or something like that. Like,
yes, which at the time, I assumed that was their next episode. I had no way of knowing that was a joke.
Before De Niro, I think, ever hosted, and it was whenever they would do stuff like that, I thought that was very cool.
Yeah, totally.
When
yeah.
they would,
do you guys like think a lot about the musical guests on the show, or does that not, in terms of your SNL interests and stuff? Because for me, that's always been a big part of it. But generally speaking, in recent years, I just haven't found the selection of musical guests to be nearly as interesting as it was in like the first 5 years, where I thought it was just incredible.
It seems that it's just the presentation gets more attention than the actual, some of the music is, in terms of the visuals and the sets and things. So not for everybody, but I just loved the innovativeness with that everybody got the same set, and it was just all about the ability.
Right.
It's just things have changed. It's different, but yeah, some of the music was unbelievable that they've had. That I thought the Peacock doc with the music was unbelievable.
Oh my god, yeah. If anyone who's listening to this should which is probably, if there's probably everyone who's listening to this has watched that doc, but if you haven't out there, at least watch the first 8 minutes.
Oh, greatest SNL documentary ever. I think there's nothing that compares. But the what's interesting about the music is like, when I watched the show, then I went back and I watched everything, and like I wanted to figure out like what's the best way to like take in all this information. So in my other life, I'm also like I DJ, so I was like, oh, SNL is a great way for me to learn about older music, and I always found like it's a really good reflection of every generation of music. So oftentimes I'd be like, okay, what was popular then and why is it interesting? And I still think it hits. Like, even though the visual presentation has changed tremendously and now everyone's like trying to one up each other on the SNL stage, like I think they hit a lot of like what makes 2024 music 2024 music, or 2025 music 2025 music. So I don't think they lost a step as far as booking the right guests. They just might not be as like indie or niche as they were back when the cast members would ask for favors for their friends to come and perform on the show.
Right.
It's interesting.
Yeah, I guess I just think of bands like, in season 1, the Preservation Hall Jazz Band, where it's just like 8 old men who are just sitting and playing the hell out of their instruments, and it's like,
well,
this would be the weirdest. Oh, were they? What did they?
They were at the homecoming.
They played in the 50th. Oh, okay. What did they? I can't remember because I only watched it when that aired that night. But what did they? They were playing in the concert?
I think they were backing other performers or playing like between sets. But like they were
okay.
They were there.
Cool.
It was very unique.
Yeah. John, you were there. Awesome. I was not there in Radio City, but I just had recently talked to somebody that was there, and they were talking about how when they first found out that the Backstreet Boys were going to be a part of it, that it was just like didn't make any sense to them. Why? Well, I'll get to it. Well, it was a generational thing. They told me at first why they would be included, but then he's like, I was so wrong when they got up and everybody knew the words.
Yeah.
It didn't matter who it was. He was like, and that's when I knew that how, because I think if you had too many of those pop groups on, I think that wouldn't have worked. But they were to put one up there like that was just, it really said a lot about, I think, just the band and their longevity, and that everybody in the audience knew the words.
I don't like, most people have not experienced being in a 6,000 people room, a concert going on, and it is like dead. And that's what was happening for this 50th concert. Maybe it didn't play on TV that way, but like the room was as dry as could possibly be.
It didn't play like that.
And then the Backstreet Boys came on, and it like lit a fire in the room, and it was as loud as possible. And from that point forward, it just like everything was nuts. It was probably the Backstreet Boys and Post Malone with Nirvana were the two moments that the room was the loudest.
Oh wow. Okay, so here's my question. What is the funniest host musical guest pairing of all time? And I do kind of think there's a correct answer to this question.
Oh gosh, I mean, I'm trying to think. Strange.
Okay, I got one.
Okay.
Drew Barrymore, garbage.
That one weirdly works for me, but
Patrick Swayze, Sweet and Salt and Pepper.
Oh no, Patrick Stewart.
Oh yeah. Sorry, Patrick Stewart.
Oh, that's a great one. I think mine would be Steve Forbes and Rage Against the Machine.
Yes, I was there for that one. I was there for
or Charles Barkley and Nirvana is another good one.
Okay,
or Trump and Toots and the Maytals.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. That's a great one too. Just like the most dissonance between the host and the musical guest.
Steinbrenner. Who was Steinbrenner when he hosted?
I think it was the time. I believe.
Yeah.
It was like Prince's group, The Time, or I don't know if it was Prince's group.
I think Al Gore Fish was pretty.
That's interesting. That's a really good one.
Arthur, I wanted to ask you about. You've submitted to SNL before. Well, can you share some of your premises that you pitched in your packet? How many did you do multiple ones to SNL?
So I've actually only done before this year just 2. So I did one last year, and then I did one with my friend and roommate Dan Klein, but that was back in like 2008. And then, of course, I think we've talked about it on this podcast. I auditioned in 2018, but I've only actually submitted a packet twice. But yeah, I did 5 sketches. Let's see. I have it here in front of me, so I could kind of skim through and tell you the premises.
And also, if you could tell us who you cast, because the thing that I think some people don't realize is when somebody does a writing packet, you are actually writing down, Kristen, if it's Kristen Wiig, or it's the current cast or whoever it would be. You'd be writing Heidi, and you're casting everybody.
Yes, you put like the most recent season's cast into the roles. And I think you can also maybe cast the hosts too. But to me, it just makes more sense to just have it be the cast. So I did a sketch about microdosing. So it's basically a conference room. It's like a tech startup. And they're trying to think of a name for the app. And then someone comes up with a good name, and they find out that it's because they microdose and it made their brain a little more creative. And then it's revealed that Andrew Dismukes also read that article, but he misread it as macrodosing. So he said that he just started doing it this morning. So he macrodosed LSD, and he's in this office meeting. So that's kind of the premise of that one. Let's see, what else did I have? Oh yeah, books you can eat. It's a pre-taped commercial. Do you find that getting through an entire book is nearly impossible? I wish it was easier to finish a book. Well, now it is. Introducing books you can eat. So it's basically edible books. That way you could, when someone asks you how that book is going, you can not lie to them when you say that you finished it. And then I did a weekend update segment with Sarah playing the GOP nominee for president in the year 2028. So the idea there is that just like, even if Trump loses in November, which of course he didn't, many are worried that he's already pushed the GOP to such extremes that there's no turning back. Here now from the future to address that concern is the Republican nominee for president in the year 2028. And then it's basically just Sarah. I don't even know. Her name is Bart Truck, and she has a tattered blazer, 1 foot wide tie, American flag iPad. The game of this sketch is that she's basically just completely insane, but is the Republican candidate. So that was that one. Oh, I had a sketch called No Dumb Questions, which is that it's like a tour group at the Mona Lisa. And that thing that people often do when they'll be like, yeah, sorry, this might be a dumb question, but like, was the Mona Lisa like a real person? And then Mikey Day goes, oh, no, not a dumb question. And then he answers it. And then Sarah goes, oh, sorry, yeah, this might be a dumb question. Is the Mona Lisa smiling because she's watching sports bloopers? And basically everyone in the tourist group just keeps asking truly dumb questions. So that sketch is basically just dumb questions. And then the last sketch that I submitted was a music video where Ego plays sort of a Donna Summer, or maybe she literally plays Donna Summer. It's for a show called Crappy Classics, and it's basically just her kind of singing about, there's that line from the song Hot Stuff, sitting here calling my boyfriend, but ain't nobody answering the phone. This song is basically just all about her making phone calls on the phone. It's essentially just what I used to do for when I would write first drafts of rock for the Tonight Show, which is just there's something a little bit unusual in the first sentence, and then you just extrapolate and have the whole song be about that. So the song is basically just about Ego loves making phone calls, and she's just singing about how much she loves her phone and her phone calls, and then you find out that she uses her phone as a vibrator and that kind of thing.
I wanted to ask you, the one thing that they did mention, I've heard from a lot of people over there, is they to keep the sketches as short as possible. Were your sketches pretty short, or would you
No.
say? Or no,
No,
okay.
I mean, I tried to keep them on the shorter side, but I felt like they need to be the shortest length that they like should be in order to kind of still make it feel like a full sketch. I remember when I was auditioning for SNL, my audition was like, I think it was probably about 7 minutes, and I know that they tell you to keep it to 5 minutes, but I've been on the other end of receiving packets and watching auditions before. Not watching SNL auditions, obviously, but watching, auditions for other things. And something like a time limit is not going to be the deciding factor. You're not going to not put Will Ferrell on SNL if he does 7 minutes in his audition.
I wish it's amazing that I could see when you got hired on Fallon, because they actually recorded during rehearsal. But to see your SNL audition would be fun. John, have you seen any SNL auditions that haven't been on YouTube before? Have you ever seen tapes of those before?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind is that documentary that they released in advance of the 50th, talking about the auditions. There was a ton of footage in there that I don't think anyone's ever seen before. So
I just know this guy who was an intern at the show who has a tape of, and he showed me, this is a long time ago, of just random people. And the only one that got it that year was Rachel Dratch, but I saw pretty much everybody. I remember Andy Daly, who's really funny, auditioned, and
oh wow!
I think I'm trying to remember who else was in that. I think Ali Faranakian maybe as well. I forget.
Oh,
But
interesting. I
yeah.
remember that SNL server I had at the office did have some old auditions, so I remember watching I think Adam McKay's audition. I saw a bunch of people from that season or two.
Elon Gold, the New York Post even said that they thought he was going to get hired that season. Unbelievable, that guy. He got Dana Carvey. I don't know if you've ever seen any of his reels. I don't even think they're on YouTube, but they're unbelievable. I still wish that guy would have gotten hired. But
did you see Galifianakis's audition in the same one as Dratch?
No, I didn't. I don't think, not that I remember. I'm sure if I blocked it out, I think I would remember it. Maybe I didn't watch the whole tape. I probably only watched maybe like 10. I remember Andy Daly doing Hunter Thompson. I remember I interviewed Dratch on the show, and she has never seen her audition, she told me. And I'm like, you did really, really well. I remember her and Tina Fey had a show at UCB called Dratch and Fey, and I saw it a bunch of times. And she did some stuff from there, and she did Callista Flockhart. But Dratch, I mean, absolutely slam dunk Michael Jordan. I mean, just like, oh my goodness. You can see why she got hired on that. I mean,
wow.
Flawless. Yeah. But
yeah, there's some great ones out there. I'm trying to think. I mean, I think I sort of modeled mine after Jimmy, because his audition was just cram as much stuff into 5 minutes, or in my case, 7 minutes, as you can.
Did Jimmy give you any advice in advance of that audition?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't remember any specific advice. I think I do remember when I first kind of, was asking for his blessing to audition. He knew about my freaky SNL power with knowing all the dates and stuff, and he was brainstorming that I could do something involving that, in my audition. I kind of remember thinking, I don't think that's the best idea. I kind of don't know if they're going to want to like hire fanboys and stuff. But he was just really encouraging about it. Very supportive.
I thought it was so interesting with the documentary where they talked about the gentleman who got naked at the audition. And
that guy Henry Zabrowski, who is hilarious,
very funny. And Henry clarified they knew in advance that I was going to be doing that, so it wasn't. I kind of thought it was a surprise that he just did that. But I guess that they knew about it. But that guy is a really, really funny sketch player. I thought He was really
That's my son. That's my son Theo right there.
He's gonna have to sign a release form, or this will never air. No, but it was really funny. I did want to mention Galifianakis, John, too, because Barry Katz, who was recently on this podcast, who manager of, I mean, he got Brewer on the show, he got Hammond, he got Tracy Morgan, Jay Moore. He, on one of his episodes, said, and I believe this to be the truth, and I forgot to ask Barry about this, is that Galifianakis, but I guess it must have been pre-Carrie Hoffman, who was his manager, or maybe he knew that Barry had some clients on the show, offered Barry, I will pay you X thousands of dollars if you can get me an audition on the show, or to get me in the after party or something. I mean, Zach at one point was hanging out in the 30 Rock lobby for waiting for writers, and would go up to Al Franken and be like, how do I get on? How do I get to be a writer here? And
Zach Galifianakis?
Yes, and the writer, and I think Galifianakis said that Franken said at the time, which is, this is what you had to do, is you had to do stand up. I mean, unless you were a lampoon, it was a lampoon, and stand-ups were the ones that were getting hired. And like at this point, Zach was out of school, and yeah, I know, to look back, because this guy's hosted the show and is like such a good host, is unbelievable. It's to think about him hanging out in the lobby like a lot of people did when they were getting started and stuff. I mean, it was just this giant mystery how you got hired on SNL.
I've been advocating for open auditions for SNL for a very long time.
Really?
Yeah, I think it would be great. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?
They just don't want their time wasted. That's the thing. You're gonna probably get the receptionist or something like.
Why limit the talent pool to the people that like or have agents, or like, it's just, to me, like, there's probably really, really funny people out there that they're limiting themselves from bringing on.
You might.
It's interesting though, because it's probably opened up a lot more in recent years with TikTok. Like, you think of someone like Jane Wickline, who, like, TikTok was sort of her big thing, right? Like,
yeah, and Jay Foster Johnson.
Yeah, so that's like, that right there is opening it up to people who I don't know if they would have. I mean, I guess it depends on if you have a rep, but yeah, it's just non-traditional ways of getting on the show.
I'm trying to think if there's anybody else that didn't have an agent or a manager who was able to somehow finagle their way in, or
I mean, the only one that's coming to mind for me is Eddie Murphy.
That's unbelievable. Now,
so that really supports John's theory there.
I know somebody that I've talked to that was in the room when he auditioned, and Murphy, I've heard different versions, but one of them is that Murphy was actually just kept calling SNL up and being like, you have to let me audition, and just was relentless.
But also, I don't even think he did a traditional audition. I believe he just essentially performed 5 minutes in front of Neil Levy.
Yeah,
he was up on the 17th floor, and it was Neil was probably one of them. There were two other people, or three people that were there as well, and he was 19. I don't think he was with Richie Tinkin at the time who became his manager, and I think you might have been right. Maybe he was the only one that got it without any representation.
Isn't that funny? Arguably their funniest cast member of all time had no representation when he got SNL.
Unbelievable that guy. I mean, the guy would have gotten famous no matter what, but just the fact that he was telling everybody that would listen, I'm going to be famous by the time I'm 20 or whatever. And then it just worked out for that guy. Unbelievable. But that he was calling up apparently 17, and that was his only audition of his career. He's never auditioned since for anything.
Yeah, but look, you think about like American Idol, like Kelly Clarkson, Carrie Underwood, like they would not have been on the show or won the show if you needed to have representation to get on an audition at American Idol. Like, why do it this way?
SNL almost or Lauren almost participated, and it was like a comedy contest, right? Where the reality winner would have gotten to be an SNL cast member. They were close,
fighting for this for a long time.
They were close to doing that. I mean, I don't know if they thought it hurt the integrity of the show or what, but why they stopped. They didn't go through with it, but definitely
it probably just is to protect, like, to just protect the time of the people who are working there. I would guess, like, just because, like, I remember it's just I think what you're saying totally makes sense, John. Like it would open up the, like, you know, what could go wrong with that. And then there's the part of me that used to read packets, and, you know, when you're watching auditions and you see so many people do the same, you know, impression or whatever.
But let me ask you, if you got like former cast members to come back in and judge or watch these auditions, like, then you're not really wasting the time. Like, then you're involving the family in this, or people who have the experience, former head writers coming on in. Like, you could have like a panel of people vet these people in order to.
Oh, I like that. I like that.
I like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely could see that as a show as well. I mean,
yeah. What about SNL cast members who got on the show but never auditioned? Like, I feel like I heard that maybe Maya Rudolph did not audition, I want to say, but I might be wrong about that. And
Mike Myers never auditioned for the show. There's only a few of those, right? Like,
well, there's like, I think Amy Poehler did not audition. There's like, probably Christopher Guest and Harry Shearer and
Michael McKean, and
yeah. But like Phil Hartman auditioned, Dana Carvey, but like who else did not audition? Is there anyone you could think of, John? That
other than like Chris Elliott and Janine Garofalo, I mean, Mark McKinney probably didn't have to audition.
Right, Mark McKinney.
Only under very weird circumstances. Like now, with everything being so formulaic, I don't think that there's been anybody in the last 20 years, probably.
Yeah. Maybe not since Amy Poehler. Possibly.
Yeah. And Amy's the last one to be made into a repertory player right away, pretty much, like after a few months.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't realize that. That makes...
But I think she was sort of on like another level from where most people start, having already done the UCB show. And
yeah, it was on Comedy Central already. And I mean, she was in New York. She was already known.
Doing Conan.
But she was, phenomenal.
Yeah. By the way, Mark McKinney, I think, would be my vote for most underrated cast member of all time.
He did a good Steve Forbes. He had the fops.
I thought he was like pitch perfect in everything he did and knew how to serve the sketch in a way that few cast members could quite nail. Like some cast members are just 100% like serving the sketch every time and know exactly what it needs. And he's one of them. You just never hear much about him, at least in terms of SNL,
Chopper 4, 10-1 sketch.
I think if you're defining underrated is like how good they actually were to the perception of how good that they were, I think you got to go with like Chris Parnell was probably way better than he's perceived to have been. Because
is he not perceived to have been that good? Like,
it's not that he's perceived to be bad, but just that he's not like given the credit of being like one of the greats of his era. And I think you can throw Amy in that category. I think that Amy is a top 10 cast member of all time who doesn't get recognized as one.
Amy Poehler?
Yeah, I do.
I just feel like she does get recognized, right?
As a top 10 cast member of all time? I don't know about that.
Maybe not a top 10, but like I feel like she's, I don't know, my understanding of it is that people believe she was great on SNL, but I don't know. The Chris Parnell thing, he's someone he gives like understated performances and stuff, and I think I would totally agree with that.
Phil Hartman was not given the credit he should have gotten at all when he was a cast member. I mean, but
now everyone thinks he's the GOAT. So
everybody does. It just took a long time, I think, for people to realize how good he was in his brilliance. But there are a few people like this. Arthur, I know that you have to go because you have a life, and John, you're married now, and
I have to go, Mark, but not because I have a life.
Well, just yes, but thank you for doing this, John. Thank you for being here, Arthur, and I love doing this. I mentioned John to John that you were doing this. I love Arthur Meyer, and you're always good. And I've been so honored that you kept your clothes on because we haven't even gotten into that.
Thank you.
I think you must take the prize on Fallon of taking your shirt up more than anybody else that's ever been on that show. I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, I mean I've been naked on a few shows, High Maintenance and Shrill and Fallon.
Zappos commercial, right?
And the Zappos commercial. I don't know. That's unbelievable that you know that. But yeah, yes, that's right. You always do your research. I love how cryptic it is every time I do my research. What the hell are you talking about? Yeah. Oh wait, can I plug something really quick?
Yes, please.
ABC Parenting, which is my sort of web series thing. It's on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. We're about to come out with sort of a second season, if you will, but there's going to be 55 episodes in the second season, and we're going to start coming out with it on we're aiming right now the first week of September, but we also have our whole first season, which is online right now. So check out ABC Parenting, which, as I might have said on John's podcast, does have some SNL alum in it, including Beck Bennett and Ellen Cleghorn, and some other cool people like Erykah Badu and Lauren Lapkus is in it. Oh, Abby Elliott, another SNL alum, is in it.
And in case you're wondering, ABC stands for anything but clothes.
Yes.
Excited. Arthur, thanks for coming back. This was fun, and we'll tell everyone this was your appearance.
Awesome. Thanks so much. This is great.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. On Apple Podcasts, please rate it and leave a review. Be sure to go to latenighter.com for all your late night TV news. And you can find my podcast at latenighter.com/podcasts. Have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next Tuesday.